Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.
The September international break saw Nuno sacked, and the October international break was effectively the end of Ange. It's definitely a different story as we come off the back of the November international break with what certainly feels like a more calm and settled atmosphere at Nottingham Forest, with the rocky rapids of the first quarter of the season now well and truly behind them. Less players departing for international duty this time meant Sean Dyche had a near full squad to work with ahead of the big game at Anfield on Saturday. Have his messages and principles now been fully embedded? And with Liverpool's form so erratic, is this a good time to play them? We're back to preview Forest's trip to Merseyside, and I'm your host, Greg Oram, along with my podcast partner, Richard Spray. With us on the panel, we're delighted to be joined by Raf the Random Pundit and the prodigious Paul Morley. Forest have had some incredible moments against Liverpool over the years, not least at Anfield last year. Is it time for one more?
Little pick up. Woodcock and Buckles has got it. It's first ever goal for Nottingham Forest, but it had to be. Nottingham Forest 1, Liverpool nothing. He's come through on his own. The pace and confidence to do it. Not a bad looking cross. Woodcock and a superb goal from Barrett. That was as good as Forest are likely to get all season. Down towards Cook, who takes it down and belts it. Good ball in! Yates hits the post! Already! Nottingham Forest lead Liverpool! And Tyler Already with his third goal of the season after the ball came back off the post. It's Forest 1, Liverpool 0.
He's picked out Hudson-Odoi. Those two are making an impression, making a difference. And Hudson-Odoi has made an even bigger difference there! Nottingham Forest have snatched the lead at Anfield!
We're gonna celebrate, oh yeah, one more time.
Just something to get a little bit going in the morning ahead of the trip to Anfield, just to look back on some of those wonderful moments against a team that, over the years we've, definitely had our moments against, I think that's what I'm trying to say. Certainly going back to the days in the European fixtures as well. Richard Spray, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. It's surprisingly awake for 5:30 in the morning here, but feeling pretty pumped about what's to come and hope that we can just get something out of this match. And I tend to think we might. So feeling pretty positive.
Morning, Raf. How you doing? Good to see you.
Oh, yeah, good. Yeah, doing well. Other than the fact I've got this lovely new Forest, very thick jumper, but I'm actually sat right next to a radiator, and it being about -2 outside, realised I've made quite a large error. But yeah.
We're looking good, though. I did notice it's got the nice 2 stars in there. I've seen them on the club shop. They look quite warm. So
they're really comfortable.
Amazing. Paul Morley's with us. How you doing, mate?
Good. I've just added another item to my Christmas list after that sales pitch by Raf there. But I'm good, thank you. Funny enough, I was messing about yesterday evening because there's nothing on telly, no football is there now that the international break's over, and on YouTube, and that highlights of that 2-0 European Cup game just flashed up. So it was like 15 minutes worth of highlights watching that last night. So it was interesting how you had that on your intro. So yeah, we're obviously in sync and looking forward to hopefully produce another bit of magic at the weekend. We'll
Fantastic. See. And the club have been dishing out a load of emails this last week with loads of discounts. So with the build up to Christmas, if you haven't seen it already, there's loads of stuff on offer at the club shop, and I've resisted. I mean, I really have resisted as well. I haven't hardly bought anything lately. So let's see how long I can hold out. If you're with us, please.
Quid, Greg, this is 20 quid.
I know. If you're with us in the comments, let us know you're here. We'll give you some shout outs if we can. Just quickly before we get going, more into Steve. He says, finally, the international break is over and no injuries. Yeah, we'll talk about that as we get into it. Brucey in Texas says, good morning, y'all. As does Jackie Howarth. She's asking, is there still no Woody? We're not sure. We'll hopefully find out later today. And our good friend Steve says, good morning from a freezing Nottingham. Indeed, it certainly has turned. Let's get straight into the episode. We are previewing the game against Liverpool on Saturday. Richard Spray, your general thoughts on this one going into it? What are you thinking?
Yeah, what's the old adage? What a difference a day makes, 24 little hours. But it's what a difference a year makes, because my goodness, they come in as a club, Liverpool, with a very different sort of tenor about them compared to last season when we played them in Anfield. I mean, it was like they were flying high. They hadn't given up a goal, I believe, to that stage. And then now they have a goal difference of 1 this season. They're, I think, 8th in the Premier League. It's just such an amazing shift. As much of a shift as it has been for us, certainly we would prefer to be in 8th compared to where we are. But man, it's like coming into this match, I don't know what to expect, to be honest with you, because they could very much be like, you know what, this is the time where we need to, turn the tides for our club, and we need to get this win, because they got a statement win last season against us, and we're not going to let that happen again. But they've definitely got some deficiencies, so I think there's opportunity there, and I'm sure Raf will explain the great opportunities that exist for Forest to kind of break them down. But I don't know, I come into it, not to steal thunder from one legend, Chris Elmer, but he said, Ireland just beat Portugal and then Hungary back to back. And he was like, in an unexpected fashion, he was like, so nothing is impossible, right? Nothing is impossible. So tend to believe we can get like I said earlier, we can get a point out of this match. But just feeling like there's definitely opportunity for us to get a statement win again this season that sends us on a really good trajectory up the table, hopefully.
Raf, always a voice of caution heading into the game at Anfield. Can Forest pull off another shock? Or do you think it might be a little bit trickier than last year?
Yeah, it's interesting you say I'm the man of caution, because I'm usually quite optimistic and find a silver lining anywhere. It's just the realism of where we are at the moment, and just trying to keep not too high, not too low, really, to be honest. And it's interesting what Rich says about, if you actually have a look at where we were last season, and we weren't really in great shape going into that Anfield game, and it acted as the springboard. I actually think we're probably in slightly better shape, having had an element of stability. We've got more time to prep for this game than Liverpool do, with them having double the players away that we have. So I think that we weirdly have, even though we're away from home, a bit of a tactical advantage here. And we'll come on to what Slot basically telegraphs as the things that he hates and he can't deal with when he sees his head explode in press conferences. So I think that holds a bit of a key to a bit of optimism. Now, I'm not expecting the fact that we're going to win. I don't think that would be lovely, but I do think potentially getting a draw out of this game is definitely on the cards.
Raf touched on it, Paul. Less players away from Forest on international duty this time. And in fact, 2 of them were the goalkeepers. I think out of the team that might be classed as definite starters, probably only Sells and Anderson away on international duty. I mean, and Doy was there as well.
Nico.
And I beg your pardon, you're right, Nico. Yeah, sorry. Nico. And so I guess what I'm getting to, he's had a lot more players to work with back at base than perhaps he would have done in the last 2 international breaks. Is that going to make much of a difference, do you think? How are you feeling about Saturday?
I think for me the key thing is, obviously we took a huge amount of momentum into the international break after the Leeds game. So I'd imagine what the last couple of weeks has been all about is obviously as much as prepping for this game and looking and analysing and doing all the usual sort of data about the opposition, will be just trying to keep that feeling of positivity and momentum about the group, which, as you say, given the fact that less of them have gone away this time into a different environment, has hopefully helped that. And I think for me the key thing about Saturday is whatever the result at the end of it is, that we come out of it still with some positivity and momentum to take through into the next games after that, which I think, being a realist, I don't necessarily expect us to get anything on Saturday. But like I say, if we can put in a good performance, and if we get a result, absolute bonus, and it would be a huge boost to the momentum. But even if we don't come away with it with anything points wise, if we come away with a good performance and a good showing, then hopefully that will still be something we can use to build onto the next few games. I guess, just touching on what the guys have said, Liverpool are not the then they're clearly not the Liverpool of last year, which and we managed to obviously beat them. They will arguably point to the fact that we're not quite the Forest of last year either. So it probably works both ways. And I guess the one thing I would say, as much as I'd say I don't necessarily expect us to get anything, I think Liverpool are the only team in the Premier League this season who've yet to draw a game. So if the law of averages suggests that at some point they're gonna end up with a draw, then I would dearly love that to be this Saturday.
Brett's in the comments. He's reflecting on the intro. He says, "I will never forget being in the Trent End when Birtles stuck that first goal in and the roof nearly came off when Colin Barrett volleyed in the second." Yeah, I mean, I obviously was far too young to be there, but the video images are still special to watch. Jackie Howarth says, "I'm thinking 1-1, but dreaming of another win." Let me just end that call that's coming in. There we go. Mark Cantrell, thank you very much, says, "Please hit the like. Come on, you Reds." And Tim Stark says, "We are catching Liverpool with their pants at their ankles. A winnable game." Every game's winnable, some might say. I think that going to Anfield is perhaps not the most daunting of games, certainly from a Forest perspective. We have gone there and won last season, as we well know. The previous visits, we've come away with defeats, but we certainly put a performance in that first season. I think it ended up being 4-2, but we certainly put a performance in. I think the second season when we had the Turner calamity was the one where we kind of really saw the difference in the teams. And this time around, Liverpool certainly haven't been firing. And we've had our rocky road, as I talked about in the intro. And Dyche seems to have settled the troops. It's been very quiet, hasn't it, over the international break, with not much coming out of Forest, which is kind of how I like it. I've kind of got it in my head that they've all been in the training ground and they've been listening to instructions. They've all been very focused and all the team have been there. And, I kind of convinced myself that they're all on the same page. And I hope that certainly is the case for Saturday. Do I expect us to get anything against Liverpool? No. But again, I'm probably thinking the draw is the best we probably can hope for. But you just never know, Richard. And is it ever a good time to play Liverpool? I guess that you might say that this is possibly the best time to play Liverpool with their form being so erratic and them coming off the back of a heavy defeat to Manchester City. We picked up that really important win against Leeds United. Some might say, well, look, I really would have liked to have followed that with an easier game, if you like. No easy games in the Premier League, some might say, but a game that's a higher percentage of us getting a result. But I kind of feel like going to Liverpool, Richard, after the break, with the players having had the rest and really kind of had a chance to regroup, it could just be the perfect game for Forest. So is there ever a decent time to play Liverpool? Is that time now, do you reckon?
I seem to believe this was a similar statement that we were making last season when we came in to play Manchester City and they were struggling at that stage. And so we saw what happened. We got beat in that match. They completely dominated the midfield and kind of overrun our players, after we had felt pretty strong about how we were conducting ourselves at that stage. So it's never an easy time to play. They're replete with talent. They've got, I think Ekitike is one of the best players in Europe, and he's being overshadowed clearly in some ways by Isak, and so supposedly Isak's healthy. So I tend to agree with your statement, Greg. I think it's probably never an easy time to play them, but their confidence is never going to be lower, I think, than it is right now. And as Raf correctly pointed out, I think there's a certain headspace that Arne Slot's in right now, and it's not a positive one. So you hope you can exploit those kinds of things. You hope you can come in off the back of a win, even against a Leeds side, which clearly is nothing compared to Liverpool, but still come in with some momentum of some sort and believe that you can actually put in a good performance and take a point off them, like everyone's been saying in the comments and all of us here. But yeah, I don't know. I just worry about, is this the game that Salah decides to kick into gear or something of that nature. Those kinds of things you worry about, because he's definitely not been in form for the majority of the season. And so but with Nico on that side, other things that I know we did against him last season and really kept him contained. Hopefully it can be a wash, rinse, repeat in that regard. But they've still got so much going forward and so much ability. So you just got to be ever present. I'm sure Dyche will get the boys not thinking anything other than treat this game the way that you normally would treat it, with the respect that you have for them, but put in your best performance, do your job to the maximum ability that you can, and not stay humble, stay laser focused. I'm sure he'll keep them in that mindset.
Slot definitely gets rattled easily, and we've enjoyed kind of like rubbing him up the wrong way. And so I'm certain that the away fans will be doing some of that at Anfield. But the battles on the pitch is going to be where we have to kind of focus our energy and hope that we can get on top of the midfield, I would imagine. So let's have a look and think about the opposition in closer detail with this.
Send them back to East London! Send them back!
I hope anybody's not stupid enough to write us off.
Alrighty, let's have a look at Liverpool with Raf.
Cool. Thanks, team. So, yeah, Liverpool, this is kind of one of the better ones for me to do, because hopefully you all know quite a lot about Liverpool. It's not like a Gratz Reloaded. But saying that, if we have a look at Liverpool, they're kind of on double the points that we've got. We're on 9, they're on 8, they're in 8th with 18 points. They have a fairly injury-free side at the moment. Their big loss at the moment is their goalkeeper, Becker, who potentially could be back. He's got like a 75% chance of playing. But otherwise, as we've seen for now a while, Mamashvili is the one who's deputising in goal. Frimpong's definitely out at right back. And Connor Bradley has been the one who's been in. And you might say he's not really deputising because Frimpong hasn't exactly been amazing as to what exactly Liverpool wanted comparative to what they had last season with Trent in that space. So there's a bit of adaptation that's going on. They've got 5 injuries in total, but the other 3 that are injured are people that don't even make their bench. So really, they're in fairly good nick injury-wise. Their form was a bit all over the shop, if we're being honest. So they lost against Man City. If we go backwards in time, they won against Madrid, won against Villa, lost against Palace, lost against Brentford, won against Frankfurt, and then lost against Man U. And interestingly, that Man U game, I think it was the Man U game. So I think they played, I think the Palace game was the cup game and Man U was in the league. That represents their only loss that they've had at home. So they've played 5 at home. They've won 4 and drawn none and lost 1. But as you can see, it's this creeping in of losses that have happened over the last 6, 7, 8 games, which includes this loss at home. So not everything is as great at home, and it's not the impenetrable fortress that potentially we're used to. So when it comes to it, Slot is going to play his kind of like we play most of the time, a 4-2-3-1. And it's kind of more of that than a flat 3 that we've seen last season when you had Gravenberch, McAllister and Szoboszlai kind of slightly more flat, and Szoboszlai would go forward. The reason why is I think they've been experimenting with Wirtz a bit. He's come in at 120 million quid or something like that, and then trying to make him work. And to be honest, he has been absolutely terrible in the 10. Absolutely no productivity whatsoever. So they've been kind of shifting it around. But in the back line, I don't think there's going to be any surprises. You're going to see Van Dijk, you're going to see Konate as their centre-back pairing. Interesting who's going to be then at left-back, because you've got Kerkez or you've got Robertson. Having a look at it, Kerkez has notched up twice as many minutes, actually slightly more than twice as many minutes as Robertson. But if you have a look at these last 3 games that they've played, which are on screen, so this is the Man City game, the Real Madrid game, and the Villa game, Robertson has started all 3 of those. So logically, you would think Robertson would start. But here's the question. He's just come back of that Scottish international break. And for all the best will in the world, when you have such an unbelievably seismic win, like, and anyone who has not watched from 80 minutes onwards about last Scottish game, I implore you to do it. It's the biggest pick-me-up you've ever seen. It's absolutely fantastic. But the come down of all the endorphins that are firing off of that, Robertson, I wouldn't expect that if Robertson plays, he may not actually have his best game, which when we come to teams is potentially an opportunity, because also if Kirkes comes in, he has not had the best season at left back. So their left back position offers a bit of an opportunity. Midfield, I think they've now gone back to what they know. So Gravenberch and McAllister sitting as those 2 in midfield, you'll probably see that again. I would bet my house on it pretty much. And then you're going to have Salah on the right. He's not on form, but again, like we've been trying to do with Gibbs White, play him into form and see what happens, right? Then you've got Szoboszlai, who now has been put into the 10 as of late. He's actually one of 2 mainstays that's played every single minute for Liverpool. Szoboszlai has and Van Dijk has. Szoboszlai's in that 10 and for me is a massive danger. If Salah kicks into gear, massive danger. Szoboszlai, massive danger. Van Dijk, to be able to deal with him, whoever's going to be our 9, has got to, and Van Dijk hasn't exactly been in great form, but again, he potentially might rise to the occasion. We then get into the interesting conundrum of who's going to be on their left. All right, so this is kind of a Wirtz versus Gakpo question. And Gakpo has actually played more than Wirtz. He's clocked up just over 9 games worth of minutes, whereas Wirtz is a little under 8. And I think, as you're seeing, although weirdly, Wirtz has played on that left-hand side the last 2 games, watched, well, actually, all 4 of us watched the Real Madrid game down in London together, which was a really, really cool thing to do. And we saw that Wirtz wasn't really doing anything. And again, he was not very good against Man City. So I feel Gakpo, and Gakpo's been on fire this season, might get a chance again on that left-hand side. Difference being Gakpo, far more attacking, far more of a traditional winger, will really, really, really challenge what I imagine will be Savona on that right-hand side. Whereas if it's Wirtz, he'll be more of a drifter and more of a support for that midfield. As we've seen, his numbers don't really do anything from a kind of goals, assists, productivity at that top level. Up the top, Ekitike, I'd be surprised if it's anyone else but him that's going to be in that 9 slot. So I've kind of picked Gakpo to show you how attacking he is. Salah, Gakpo and Salah, your traditional kind of wingers, as it were. And it's weird saying Salah being a winger, but he really does hold that right-hand side and get into the right-hand side of the box. It's nearly a complete mirror for Gakpo. But what you will see slightly here in these heat maps, if you have a look at the opposition half, Gakpo does track back a little bit to help out with defence, whereas Salah really doesn't do it very much whatsoever. And because he's not doing it, you see the work in Szoboszlai's heat map of the fact that he's actually around the right side of the opposition box to help out what will be Conor Bradley, because Salah is not going to be doing much tracking back. This is interesting because, again, without that tracking back, there is an opportunity down the left-hand side where we can get Bradley, who may not be backed up as much, even though Gravenberch will probably give him some. But again, we can see how it goes. Now, Szoboszlai's heat map has probably been the fact that he's been deployed a bit all over the shop, especially with Wirtz being tried in the 10, which is why he's got more on the right-hand side. I expect to see a lot more of his traffic in the middle and potentially helping out on the right-hand side if Salah's not tracking back. But I want to show you on the stats, when we come to the goals and assists, right? Salah is the top scorer, but with 4. And you've got, who's second on the list? There's 3 of them on 3 goals. Right, you've got Ekitike, who you'd hope as the striker. You've got Gakpo on 3 as that winger. But you've got Gravenberch, who's supposed to be that kind of enforcer of mopper up. And we've seen the same with Caicedo as well this season, where the enforcer's been turned a bit more into a box-to-box midfielder. And so Gravenberch has got an assist. He's got 3 goals. So he's clocking up with some serious danger. So we can't just ignore him in the midfield. But it's Gakpo who's got 3 goals and 2 assists. So he's only really second to Salah with 4 goals and 2 assists. So the threat is actually coming off the wings quite a lot between Salah and Gakpo. And if Gakpo starts, I'd be much happier, really, if Vert starts over Gakpo. But we'll see what Slot does. When it comes to their Premiership rankings on SofaScore, which you can see on the right-hand side, for those that are listening, right, you've got out of 7, above 7, and like on an average, and you're doing quite well, generally playing well over a season for form. Gravenberch is their top performer on a 7.27. Van Dijk, 7.22, but we know he's not had the best season compared to the heights that he normally gets. That's Szoboszlai at 7.17 next, and Gakpo at 7.02. Alisson to Becker, who's injured, is the only other one that Liverpool have at 7s. He's exactly 7, but he's not playing. So they've got 4 players. The ones that we kind of talked about are the ones that really are their form players. We still only have Elliott at 7.12, our only player that's really on form over the season. Then and this is quite interesting, if we have a look at how Liverpool are playing this season. So they're very balanced. If you look at their attack, 36 up the left, 34 up the right, and 29 up the middle. So again, using those wings a bit more than the middle. Action zones is actually pretty even this season for Liverpool. They're not camped in the other person's half 30% of the time in the opposition third, but 29% of the time in their own third. So it's not like an overwhelming camping in the opposition. It's a little bit of like Liverpool style, where they do like to counter a little bit. So it's going to be an interesting puzzle of how we play them, of how it works. Again, strengths, really good from direct free kicks, counter-attacking, like I've just said, attacking down the wings that we've seen. Creating long shooting opportunities, and using those through balls. They're also very good in the air. If you have a look at that midfield 3, plus also Van Dijk and Konate are insanely good in the air as well. The weaknesses, so how can we actually attack them, right? So they have got still a rubbish. They're pretty bad at drifting offside, okay, when they're attacking. They do just drift offside quite a lot. So we can use that to our advantage. Now, again, when they're defending, having long shots from Pop, we've actually seen they weren't very good, but Morgan Gibbs-White starting to shoot long. We're actually seeing players starting. I think Dyche has told players to start shooting more and stop trying to find the perfect pass into the box, which might work to our advantage in this game. Counter-attacks are bread and butter. They're not very good at defending those. So if we go back to the more Nuno side, which we might do against Liverpool, then that will be a really good benefit for us. And then again, something they've been very bad at is stopping teams creating chances. So we will get chances in this game, and this is where we've got to be ruthless with our chances. We'll come on to, does that mean that Wood gets a chance to start off the bed instead of being on the bench from the start if he is fit enough? But we'll come on to that in a bit. But the last thing I want to really highlight is another opportunity that we really need to take advantage of, right? How they score goals, very obvious. 14 of their 16, 17, 18 goals have been from open play, right? So they've scored 1 from a set piece. Now, I don't want to curse it, so touch some wood, but that's not where their threat's coming from. So we just got to be, Murillo's really got to be on his game to lock down that open play and sweep up what's behind. But how do they concede goals? So 7 out of what is 17 goals. Yeah, as Paul said, +1. So 17 that conceded. 7 of the 17 they've conceded from set pieces, right? So that is a possibility. Long throws into the box, corners. Could this be Milenkovic time to score from a header? Hopefully that is the case. Okay. And they are conceding still from open play. It's counter-attack there from 3, but all round set pieces and actually just playing counter-attacking and everything else as well work. But we need to focus on set pieces. So that's really my kind of whistle stop going through it. Hopefully that works for you guys.
Thank you very much. Very succinct. This is the Talking Reds.
You'll never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
And it's time for a quick break.
This episode of Talking Reds is brought to you by The Cheese Trader. If you love proper cheese and you love Nottingham Forest, then this is the place for you. From rich, creamy blues to powerful charcoal cheddar, The Cheese Trader has the flavour to match every moment of the season. Whether you're celebrating a big win or drowning your sorrows after a tough loss, use the code Talking Reds for 10% off every order. The Cheese Trader on Grape Lane in York, owned by Forest fan Stu Freesto. Proper cheese, proper passion. Find them online today and join the cheese revolution.
Thought it was time for a new ad, just to kind of mix things up a little bit. You know, Stu Freestone, friend of the show, we are going to be running a competition to give away a Forest shirt. That's going to be happening very soon. So all the details will be revealed in due course. In the meantime, 10% off your orders online and on Instagram. All the details are in the bio for the Cheese Trader. All right, so we've had a really good rundown on Liverpool. And yeah, we do know Liverpool probably more than maybe many other teams in the Premier League. So a lot of us will know about their danger men, but we now need to think about how Forest might set up. So we've done our teams. Let's get into it firstly with putting it on the board. Richard is going to go first. There's your team, buddy. Take us through what you're thinking.
Yeah, I kind of had like a Pete Blackburn moment where I did like 6 different iterations of this because I feel like there's a lot of ways to potentially approach this. But you know, at this stage, I'm going to go with what I think probably gives us the most versatility. So I went for a back 3. So just to kind of call it out for those who are not able to physically see it, who might be listening, Sells in goal per usual. A back 3 of actually Savona, Milenkovic, Murillo, and then you have kind of a pseudo midfield of 5 of Ndoye on the right, Yates, Sangari, Anderson, and Williams, and then you've got Gibbs White in a 2 pairing with Igor Jesus. But again, I'm envisioning him having a lot of freedom, kind of per what Elanga did a little bit last season, to kind of roam and sort of drift back into sort of an attacking midfield role, press when we're out of possession. But the reason I kind of went for this sort of approach was, one, to do what I think we need to do, which is to counteract that open play, which, as Raf just talked about, was a big issue in terms of how they score their goals. But it's also, you know, to get a little bit of additional height on the pitch, and Yates, along with Sangari, Savona, Milenkovic, all, you know, in that 6'3" to 6'5" range. And then also, you know, when we're in possession, potentially allow Ndoye to kind of move into and up next to and supporting Gibbs White, you know, and be able to provide some attacking potential there, and you know, but he can also, out of possession, drift back and help defend and kind of keep them at bay, and keep that midfield from getting overrun, basically. And so, you know, Williams has been excellent, as we know, doing a lot of overlapping. I think he can link up really well with Jesus. He's obviously has good synergy with Anderson on that side of the pitch. And so it provides a lot of balance in my mind in terms of enough ability to get forward when we're in possession and counter them, like Raf also talked about, but at the same time have enough control of space and be compact in that midfield and not allow them to kind of you know, cut through us as easily as I know that they're capable of doing. And hopefully that's something that provides. And I think Sangari has been really good this season. I think Raf had him on the SOFA score as 6.81. So he's actually, I think, done an admirable job this season and shown that he can be sort of a mainstay in this team, and he can drop deep a little bit too, and play a little bit deeper, because I know one of the challenges with him obviously is when he gets up against an athletic player like a McAllister or other players, even Gravenberg or those kinds of players, they can work through him. If they get past him, it's going to be difficult. You know, have to draw a foul, put himself at risk of getting, you know, thrown out. So getting a red card. So, but I think he's done a great job, and this gives him enough cover in front of him. Yates can box crash a little bit more. I think Igor's really good when he's got someone kind of playing off him. Someone like Gibbs White, I think, would do a good job, and we've seen that in, you know, games against Swansea and you know, as well as against Betis, where, you know, Gibbs White is his primary agent for serving him to get him those tap-ins and get him those, for lack of a better word, good striker, cheap goals. So hopefully that's the case. That's my team. You know, keep it close. You've got, you know, Hudson Odoi, who I know has been out for a few matches, so who knows how match fit he might be, and how if he's 100%. Transfer Market's injury report says that he would, I believe, are slated to come back. So that's good. So it'd be a good thing for us. I think Bacco as well. So I think our bench is going to have a lot of firepower, and it's something whereas if we can keep them into a 0-0 potentially by halftime, then you bring on, a Hutchinson, or you bring on a Hudson-Odoi to kind of do some damage on that left side against Bradley, which we know he did last season at Anfield. So that's kind of the way I'm approaching it. Keep it close and, going to the half, and then hopefully have some guys off the bench who can add a little bit of firepower, including Chris Wood.
Okay, thanks ever so much. So 3-5-2 is how Rich sees it. Let's switch over to Paul's team. More of a Christmas tree formation by looks things. Paul, tell us all about it.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's I think the premise of the way I've set up and the way Rich described his is much the same in terms of trying to pack the midfield really and get bodies in the middle of the park. I guess a couple of notable differences from my team to Rich's is I've gone without any wingers to start with, and that's sort of, I guess, just sort of going back to how we set up last year at Liverpool. I know it's different manager and different approach, etc. But I think the midfield four there last year was Yates, Anderson, Dominguez, and Ward-Prowse. Obviously, Sangare I think was out injured after that international break that we had last time before we played them. So similar setup, similar feel to last year. Box midfield, and then as I said, as Rich said, try and use the power off the bench later in the game. I guess the one other significant change I've got there is I've got Taiwo in, which might sort of be a surprise to a few people. I'm not sure whether Wood's fit still, and even if he is physically fit, he's obviously not been on the pitch for a while, and arguably, none of them been on the pitch for a couple of weeks. But I just think Taiwo's looked as sharp as he's ever looked in the last sort of few weeks, and we've seen him. His touch looks, sometimes he's had sort of the touch of a rhino towards the end of last year, but he seems to his touch is back. And I just think we talked about Van Dijk being someone that, he's obviously a creative influence in their team. He's someone who, if he's settled and he's calm and he's playing well, generally Liverpool play well. And I think if we can get somebody in and about him, give him something physical to think about, because if Taiwo's on the field for 60, 65 minutes up against Van Dijk, he'll give him plenty of things to think about, and he'll occupy him physically, and he'll be a real physical test for Van Dijk. So I just think it feels like a game where we can use Taiwo in that sort of battering ram type sense, where he wears down their centre backs, and then, as I say, if we look to 60 minutes, and then we get whether it's Wood or Jesus, or possibly even both of them, and Jesus playing a bit deeper, and we can exploit some tired legs in the Liverpool back line. I just think Taiwo's feels to me like this is an opportunity for him to come in and do that sort of job where he roughs them up a little bit. But for the rest of it, as I said, the key premise is keeping some control, or trying to keep some control in the midfield, packing that area, and not giving them any space to create, really, if possible. So that was the premise behind it. Whether or not we will see one of the wingers, I've got a feeling we might see Odoi start. So this may not be with what he goes with, but I just think it's a good option based on what we had success with there last year.
Just for those that can't see it, that's a back four: Savona, Milenkovic, Murillo, Williams. 3 in front: Yates, Sangare, Anderson, and then 2 in front of that with Gibbs White and Dominguez, with a Taiwo Awoniyi spearheading the formation. Thank you very much, Paul. Let's take a look at Raf's team. Over to you, buddy.
Cool. Well, I've actually gone for no change, and everyone knows that I'm such a big supporter of moving to a midfield 3. But weirdly, what Dyche has been doing, and by the way, for Liverpool, they're just going to have 3 in midfield with Szoboszlai dropping deep. I don't think, well, they might have one of their inverted fullbacks kind of pushing in as well, which Trent used to do, and they're kind of trying to keep doing that. So we do need numbers in midfield. But with what Dyche is doing, Dominguez and Odoi actually form most of the time a midfield 4. And it's quite, the Dyche 4-4-1-1 or 4-4-2. And we're seeing a bit. And Ndoye's shown the fact that he can defend, and he's become a robust defender. And Dominguez is primarily more defence than attack. So we might see an unchanged side to what was Leeds. And again, do you change a winning team, especially if you can give that robustness in midfield? The reason why I wouldn't want to do this is just what Slot has moaned about all season are 2 things which he evidently does not have the tactical nous to deal with. One is changing the formation and the players from the last game so that he doesn't know what you're going to play, and then he finds it very difficult to adapt in game. The second is keeping the ball in the air. So I would play Jesus over Taiwo, because Taiwo's actually got the worst aerial duel rates, about 20% of all the players, and he's challenged for a lot of aerial duels. So I would want Jesus up top to actually win those balls in the air. But keeping the ball in the air, very interestingly, we do have a bit of a problem for this game, and Sangare doesn't offer too much more because he doesn't actually win that many headers. Anderson is less than 50% of headers won. Only Douglas Luiz, Yates, and very surprisingly, Callum Wendo are the only out players not in defence that have 50% or higher aerial win rate in our team. So it kind of gives you the fact that this might be a Yates game who comes in at some point in somewhere. But I just think this is not what I would do. This is what I think Dyche is going to do, and I think it will be unchanged. Even if Wood's fit, he probably comes off the bench. If Callum is not, again, he's come back fit, he'll probably come off the bench. Those that are coming back from injury come off the bench rather than start, I think. That's why Dyche will do it, I think.
Okay, thank you. And I've done a team as well, which is on screen. So I've gone with basically a 5-4-1, thinking about last season as well and how we approached that game. Obviously, we had a different manager in charge, but maybe Dyche has looked back at that fixture and thought about how we might be solid in the midfield area. So I've gone with Savona and Williams as your kind of de facto wing backs that are probably going to sit more defensively, but certainly want them getting forward where possible. And in the back three, I've gone with Milenkovic, Morato and Murillo. I just think if we are going to go to a back three type formation, that it would be Morato that comes in as that third man. My midfield looks like this, with Yates and Anderson kind of filling in the middle, and then Gibbs White on the right and Dominguez on the left hand side of a four-man midfield that kind of sits in really and keeps their formation. We've seen Dominguez operate on that kind of left flank, so that's not going to be an alien position for him. Same with Gibbs White on the right. I think this is a game for Yates. You know, we need that S-Housery. We saw what he did last season when he was up against McAllister, and I think this is a good game for Yates to come in. I wouldn't be against Sangare, I suppose. I mean, he had a great game against Lee. He's got his goal. But I think a game for Yates, definitely. Igor Jesus leads my line. That's really based on the state of play in the squad. I'm not sure if Wood is fit. I agree with you, Raf. I think if Wood is back fit, that he does come off the bench rather than start. I agree with you, Paul, that Taiwo probably looks the sharpest he's looked for a long time. And his re-emergence is a positive thing. We just need him to get a goal. That's what we need. The team haven't looked a lot like scoring, but we certainly managed to do so against Leeds. Our open play goals are getting better, but it's interesting that maybe set pieces, as Raf talked about in his piece, might be an avenue for us to hurt Liverpool. I've enjoyed Nico on corners. I wonder if that will continue. So having heights with Savona, Milenkovic, Morato, Yates, etc., Igor Jesus being good in the air, having that kind of height at set pieces, I think would be really a good thing for us. And how do we win the game? You know, we win the game by staying solid, in my opinion. We had a few kind of close calls last season. They hit the post and Sells nearly dropped one in. And, you know, it's about staying focused. It's about staying in the game for as long as possible. If we're going to win it, it's going to be nicking it on the break. So I'd love to see us go back to some of that counter-attacking football. If we try and match Liverpool up man for man, I don't think we're going to get anywhere with that kind of strategy. So for me, it's about staying solid, a back five that can break into wing backs operating, and then maybe Gibbs White coming into a more tucked in position, maybe moving up to support an Igor Jesus, and everyone kind of shifting and rotating into different places on the pitch as the game unfolds. We saw it last year with the wingers coming off the bench, which is again why I've got no wingers like you, Paul. Hutchinson and Ndoye off the bench feel like good attacking threats and options. And so it would be interesting to see if we can get to a point maybe on 65, 70 minutes where, we're still in the game, maybe at a 0-0, maybe at a 1-1, what Dyche might do. I'm pretty certain that if, we are at that point in the game, he's going to probably be more cautious than anything else. I don't really see him trying to win the game from that position. Or maybe we're 1 down and he wants to try and get a goal back. So you might see wingers come into play if we're kind of chasing the game a bit more rather than trying to win it. I think he'll definitely go to Liverpool, take a point all day long, as I think we all would, and get the hell out of there. That would be, in my opinion, a really good result for Forest. So there we go. That's my team. It's the same kind of personnel, it would seem, are featured across everybody's 11. Taiwo coming into play is a different option. But we'll have to wait and see what happens on Saturday. Kickoff is a 3 p.m. kickoff for a change against Liverpool at Anfield. So don't set your calendars for a Sunday kickoff this week. All right, we are just about out of time. So I think we got everyone in the comments, please do go ahead and give us your score predictions, because I'm going to go around and get the guys' last closing thoughts and score predictions as well. But just quickly, Brucey says Virgil van Dijk looks like his legs have gone this season. Lieutenant Dan style, of course. Yeah, as Paul touched in the comments, it was a great Forrest Gump reference. Jackie agrees that Taiwo does cause problems for defences. And our good friend Scotty Down Under says, hey, Talking Reds, come on, you Reds, all the way from Down Under. All right. Paul Morley, any closing thoughts, and give us your score predictions as well?
Yeah, look, I think we're all interesting to see on the team sheets there. We all pretty much had the same philosophy in terms of the best way to approach the game and to keep it tight and to pack the middle of the park. So whichever way he does it, I'm sure that one of those teams will be pretty close to what Dyche sets up as on Saturday. And as I said before, key thing I'm looking for is a performance. I think we have got the bit between our teeth now. I think we've seen that. We're organised. We look much more organised than we did under the last manager, for sure. So I think go there, be organised, be compact, to borrow a Nuno phrase, and see what we can get. And prediction-wise, I'm going to let my head rule my heart. I think we'll probably end up losing 2-0, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we get outfought and get outplayed. It might just be a case of a bit of quality showing through that as the game wears on. I can envisage a situation you said there that we're 1-0 down perhaps with 20 minutes to go, and we sort of roll the dice a little bit, and in the end that leaves us a bit more open, and they pick us off and make it 2-0. So that's what I can envisage happening. But if that's the case, then I certainly won't be too disappointed in that, and look ahead with a lot of positivity into both Malmo and Brighton next week.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Raf, any closing thoughts, buddy, and your score prediction, please?
Yeah, I'm hoping. My heart says 1-1, but I do think. I think we lose probably 1-0, maybe 2-0. Well, I'll go for 1-0. Split the difference between the two and go for a 1-0 loss. And then, do you know what? I'm really positive. Can you remember 2 weeks that we've had in the last season or so where we haven't had drama coming out of the club? That's the benchmark of extreme drama 2 seasons ago. But there was still drama with, people coming back with injuries from international duty or whatever it might be. We've just changed managers and on to our third manager. There's still lots of other bits and pieces, and it just all feels a bit settled. And there's something that I think just got sent to you, Greg, if you can get it up on screen. Otherwise, I'll just talk to it.
I've got it.
And it's a piece that Percy just put out. And I think it's a really lovely sentiment of where we are as a club. And actually, this could be still a bit special of why I think we are on the up. So he was talking to Wone, right? And Wone says, this is why when Dyche was in at HQ talking to Marinakis, probably trying to see if they were going to get the job or not. So Wayne says to Percy, we're sitting at Starbucks across the road for 2.5 hours while the gaffer was negotiating. We were praying for it to happen. This has always been the one job we wanted. And I'd have been so gutted if it had fallen through. It's probably our last chance to give it a go. When we got told the deal was done, I was doing wheel spins outside the car park. Right. Now that tells you how much this job means to this team, right? It's not just a job. This is like a life goal for them to come back. So I think we are now seeing not just stability, but what was that, Paul? You had your 3 stages, and galvanization, I think, was stage 3.
Galvanize, organize, stabilize. That was the 3.
Oh, right. Well, we're at stabilization, and now I think we go turbocharge slowly, but I think we're in an upward trajectory of everyone pulling in the right direction, and the players knowing that these 3 and the rest of the supporting team are here to stay as long as they produce, and that level of stability is going to be really, really good.
Fantastic. I'm sorry that for some reason it wouldn't load up. I had it and it wouldn't load. I had the quote, but no, great quote and great to feel the passion coming from the old boys. Richard Spray, over to you for your closing remarks and your score prediction.
Yeah, I'm gonna go full Chris Elmer here, and I'm gonna say we win 1-0. He said something to me yesterday. He goes, he did this last season. His podcast co-host Matt didn't want to give him credit for it, but he said his scalp of the season was going to be that we'd beat Liverpool at Anfield for the first time. And this was in their preseason predictions on Forest All Over, which, by the way, shout out to him, shout out to Matt, shout out to Statman Will, everybody that's on that podcast, because they're all brilliant and they're great guys. But the passion Chris had yesterday on the phone was just like, it goes right along with what Raf said. There just seems to be, I don't want to say, jinx anything here, but there seems to be a chemistry that's developing amongst this team. And is it the same vibes and the same sort of thing that we saw with Nuno, in preseason last year that led to an amazing season for us? Not necessarily exactly the same way, but it's like Morgan said, I can finally breathe. I think there's something about what Raf's putting out there with Ian Wone that hopefully that magic is there. So I'm going to say 1-0. I'm going to say we get a magic moment from Chris Wood, who's really been struggling off the bench, right? Something just akin to one of these classic Chris Wood goals where he's just finds that perfect little moment in space, to kind of take advantage of and put it in the back of the net. And it gives us a 1-0 win to really, hopefully, as I said earlier, send us on a trajectory that allows us to continue to advance at the table and continue this sort of development of the club, moving in a similar direction, but doing it in a very Dyche, Wone, and Stone sort of manner, going forward. So, yeah, I'm going full optimism on this one. I'm going 1-0.
Okay, brilliant. I'm going to be optimistic as ever. It's going to be a repeat. We're going to go to Anfield. We're going to get the win. It's going to be 2-1 this season, though. It's going to be one. It's going to go to 1-1, and we're going to have to turn to the bench, and we're going to see a little bit of magic come off the bench. Not quite sure who it will be. Maybe Amari Hutchinson will follow up his magic moments against Leeds with something off the bench against Liverpool. But I'm going to say 2-1 to Forest. I think that Liverpool are not the team of last season, and in fact, maybe last season they flattered to deceive. Maybe it was the overhanging team of Klopp, and Slot really didn't tinker very much. He didn't bring anybody in, and he just kind of said go out and play. And if they went and kicked into probably autopilot and won the league. And this year, when he's bringing players in, he's not quite able to get the same chemistry happening. So we've had our own difficulties. They've had their own difficulties. So we shouldn't be too daunted by going to Anfield. I certainly feel that we can give them a game. More importantly, I want to follow up the Leeds result with a really good performance, with lots of good, moments in the game where we can point to and we can look at the players gelling. We've got a big European game coming up next week as well, which we want to obviously kind of get into the swing of. So, yeah, I think we can win at Anfield. And so I'm going to say 2-1. We are out of time, but Paul did point out something in the chat, which I kind of haven't really mentioned lately because we just haven't had time to kind of focus on it. But yes, we have had a Talking Reds podcast FPL league running, which we did promote. And there is a cheese platter, a cheese basket available for the winner. And top of the pile at the moment.
Is Paul saying this because he's top?
He's top, obviously. Forest
Am I
India.
really? I didn't realise.
Am I?
Hey,
I'm
relish in it, man. You're doing great.
at the top
I'm
of the
doing
league.
terrible.
Paul Morley sitting quite nicely, I have to say, and he's doing quite well in the. And I keep forgetting this year to do the Super Six. Doing quite well in the Super Six as well, Paul Morley. So Paul's sitting top of the pile, 694 points. Let's have a quick scroll down. I don't think unless I can't even see where I am. I'm in 28th position. On don't be such a cunya. With 601 points. So we're doing all right between us. One or two of us are doing better than others. Richard is nowhere to be seen. Not sure where
That's
Richard
right.
is.
I'm in the basement.
2 free stones there. Matt sells seashells in 47th. Just picking out a few others. There's Raf in 52nd. Raf's random rabble on 545 points. Good friend of the podcast, Matt Druitt. He did well last season. He's down in 56th place on 535. Dr. Anna with her Brazilian dreams. Say no more. Say no more. She's in there as well on 58 in 58th and 520. Bruce with John Texter's inbox is in 59th and 519. My son Orlando's in 61st. He's having a bit of a stinker this year, bless him. Oh, there's Nico, the Nico Coalition. Richard Spray in 63rd place down there on 502. Okay, well, we'll have another proper roundup of the Talking Reds FPL League another time, but we are out of time. Come and join us on Sunday when we do the review episode. Enjoy the match on Saturday. Come on, you Reds.
Come join Greg and Richard right here on Talking Red.